Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm Dick McGoey. I'm here to introduce Lou Ingrassia and Jack Farr, who will be your panelists to discuss aging infrastructure. These gentlemen have been working with aging infrastructure for over 30 years. The infrastructure they're working with is well in excess of 100 years in many locations. I'll start with Jack Farr, who has been with the city of Port Jervis for 35 years, starting as a laborer, going to a water superintendent, assistant DPW director, and for the last 8 years, Jack has been the director of public works, managing 35 employees in the city of Port Jervis. Lou Ingrassia has been employed by the Walcott DPW for 34 years, beginning as a laborer, becoming a water and sewer operator and the water and sewer superintendent. Lou is now the Commissioner of Public Works and the Director of the Office of Emergency Management. Lou has water operator's licenses, grade 1A, 1B, and C and D, and a sewer operator's license, 3A. Lou is involved statewide and nationally in public works associations, is the president of the Orange County Highway Superintendents Association, vice chairman of the Hudson Valley Damage Prevention Council, and also an active volunteer fireman with the Howells Fire District for 39 years, serving 5 years as chief of the department. So I'll now turn this over to the presentation by Lou and Jack.
Lou, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
No, you can go ahead, buddy.
All right, myself and Lou have gone through this previously a few years ago. There's a big difference between the city of Port Jervis and the town of Walcott. Town of Walcott is a lot newer than the city of Port Jervis. Our infrastructure was installed early 1900s with a water and sewer system. We had a combined water or a storm and sanitary system, which was switched out to a separate system. In the early 2000s, we were awarded a $10 million grant to upgrade our water system, which we did. We installed new storage tanks, upgraded probably a third of our water system, our replacement of water mains. And since then, we've been doing a little bit of work with water in-house, but most of our work has been through sewer and sewer relining. About 7 years ago, the city of Port Jervis had one of their first and only sewer main breaks, which ultimately ended up into a consent order, which at the end of the day probably helped us getting points to be awarded several grants along the way. I have a very talented crew of employees. So I knew once we jumped into getting this grant that we would be able to do a lot of this work in-house, which we have. Getting back to the grant, we were awarded almost $1 million to purchase and install sewer relining. The equipment alone cost us in excess of $500,000. And to date, my guys have installed well over a mile's worth of sewer liner with our own crews. At our own pace. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were given some more money to purchase a spot repair system, which to date we've repaired 2 or 3 different spot repairs, which is done with a internal clamp, which once you find the damaged pipe, you go in, you repair this clamp, and you're in and out of there with no excavation whatsoever. The sewer relining, the city has funded. We're going after some further grants to continue this. The liner that we currently use has between 150 and 200 year lifespan. So will well outweigh my time in the city and a few people past my time. So we're going to continue that in-house for as long as we can. Hopefully we can secure some more grants because we would like to get the whole entire city done. We're planning on, if we get some more grants, we could be done with the entire city within 10 years. Water main replacement, we haven't secured any grants and water main replacement since our original 10 million. Typically, you're a little more than $100 a foot, maybe up to $130 a foot for water main. Typically, that's done with open excavation, which is it's very time consuming. Also, this year we've started the program of lead replacement throughout the city. We haven't commenced this project yet, but we were awarded funds through the state health department to start doing certain sections of the city for lead replacement. It's going to be on an on-need basis, and that replacement's going to be done from the main all the way into the house by the meter to alleviate all of the, or eradicate, I should say, all of the lead that is in the city step by step. That's just a quick basis of what we're doing right now. I'm going to let Lou speak for a little bit because I'm sure hopefully there'll be some questions for a question and answer, so we can answer any questions anyone has out there.
Thanks, Jack. Like Jack alluded to, town of Walcott and Port Jervis, definitely two separate systems. Town of Walcott, we're located at the intersection of 17 and 84. It's the easiest way to describe where we're at. There's always some confusion as to whether you're in Middletown or in Walcott. But the town of Walcott, we have our own separate water and sewer infrastructure. We have about 6,100 accounts, water and sewer, split probably about 65 residential, 35 commercial. A lot of heavy industry in the town. The Garnet Medical Center is located in the town. The main medical corridor of the Hudson Valley is in the town of Walcott. So ultimately, there's a lot of things going on here. Like we talked about our infrastructure, the majority of the town infrastructure was initially installed in the early 1960s and then continued on through the boom, if you want to call it the sprawl, out to 11, the Miracle Mile in the 70s. Through the 80s, we saw a big boom in housing development, of course, in the Scotchtown area. So we're pretty blessed that our system's not that old. We do have a tremendous amount of transite pipe in the system. That was pretty popular back in the 70s, but for various reasons, cost being one of them. So we do have a lot of transite water main. So that brings its own, challenges and struggles. We produce about 3.5 million gallons of water a day, drinking water, and we treat, just about the same amount back to the sewer plant at the wastewater treatment plant. Upgrades and things like that over the past several years. We've installed a full SCADA system on our water system. That was about a $2 million project. We've renovated a couple storage tanks throughout that same process. We updated all of our chemical bulk storage facilities, and we changed out all the meters on our production wells. We do not have the benefit of a reservoir in the town of Walcott. We have 21 production wells, 3 locations in the town that all come into a combined system. We do have water that's under the influence, groundwater, under direct influence of the Walcott River. So we treat for that. We have green sand filtration. 2 of our plants treat for groundwater under the influence. 2 of our plants use ultraviolet disinfection. We use a Badger water meter system. We had an Orion system that's kind of aged out now. It's a little over 15 years old. And we're currently installing a Beacon cellular network. We have about 100 in place right now. We just received a green infrastructure grant to the tune of almost $1 million to assist us in changing out the rest of the water meters. And the goal there is the catchphrase is making water visible. And through an app on your smartphone or tablet, you'll be able to monitor your water meter. You'll be able to be notified if there's a large flow through your meter, saying if you're out of town or something like that. So these are all upgrades that we've worked on and we're working towards. On the wastewater side, about 65 miles of sewer main, 13 sewage pumping stations. The original plant was upgraded to a 4 MGD plant in 1988. And since that time, over the past several years, we've definitely done more upgrades. New raw sewage pumps, new belt presses, new screening facilities. Over time, this stuff runs 24/7. It just wears out. We do have a pretty extensive inflow and infiltration program. We are not a combined system, but some of our infrastructure that was put in is under the influence of inflow and infiltration. So we've been definitely going after that. We've been monitoring that pretty closely, trying to, basically we don't want to send clean water to the wastewater treatment plant because that just costs money to treat, and that's not a good idea. The town of Walcott DPW, I've been a commissioner since 2013. Like Dick alluded to earlier, I started here, in 1986 as a laborer, water and sewer, very similar path as Jack. Came through as a laborer, went through water and sewer, water superintendent, and then ultimately commissioner. We have about 65 full-time employees in all our divisions, parks, water, sewer, highway, things like that. Our water and sewer, our funding and our budgets, we have a kind of a unique system, I think. We fund through a benefit assessment fee, and about 40% of our budget comes through a benefit assessment fee that's assessed on both residential and commercial properties. And, the other 60% comes through user rates. Our combined rate for water and sewer is $5.60 per thousand, which is pretty low, comparable in Hudson Valley. So we like to keep that rate low, and we augment our budget, like I said, with the benefit assessment fees. One of the things that we're finding now, of course, planning for the future, the big thing is, trying to be proactive and making our infrastructure resilient. We're in a good location in the county. We have a tremendous amount of hotels, a tremendous amount of retail, eating establishments, things like that. And we're always looking for more water, and we're always doing upgrades on our wastewater so that we can plan for the next 50 years of the town of Walcott and make sure everything's in place. We have been very successful, as Jack has, in achieving grants. My DPW administrator is Michelle Baker, and she's also the DPW grant administrator. And we've been successful in securing grants, zero interest loans, EFC funding. I would want to say tens of millions of dollars, literally, in various fundings and things like that. There's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of money to go after, and it would behoove everyone to try to get as much as they can. The Infrastructure Act that's out there, that's going to be good for all of us going forward. One of the challenges that we face here, and I'm sure Jack will concur, we face staffing challenges just like everybody, and staffing of qualified personnel, people that want to get into water operations, wastewater operations. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity out there for people to get involved in that. And I sit, like Dave or Dick said, on various boards and things like that, present in front of groups. And I speak like a broken record to the fact that, let's get our young people back into the trades. Let's teach them to get dirty. And ultimately, in the water and wastewater infrastructure, DPW world, there's always going to be a need. And it's just getting harder and harder to find qualified operators. We were joking earlier in the panel, there's a lot of gray hair on this panel. And like our infrastructure, some of us are aging out. And you look over your shoulder and you don't see a lot of people coming through the door. The old story was that, over the next 10 years, 60% of the water and wastewater treatment plant operators are going to be retiring and moving on. And, we really don't have a lot of folks following our steps. So basically, that's kind of where we're at. We got a lot of things happening here. And, like Jack said, hopefully some people out there to have some questions, and hopefully we have some answers for you.
While we're waiting for that, I have one question. Maybe Jack and or Lou could add. How do you, as the directors of public works, get your mayors, supervisors, and town boards invested in improving the old infrastructure? I mean, you have to sell this to them. And maybe you could explain to those present that could go back to their boards and their supervisors as to how you were successful in doing that.
If you want, Lou, I can go first. Dick, you're absolutely correct. It's very difficult to get the supervisors, the mayors to buy into this. One, this is not all fluff. This is not all flowers and signs out in the street. 90% of what we do is buried under the ground, so you never see it. We keep rigorous records of issues of different areas around the city that we have issues with. And the one thing that citizens and taxpayers do not want is being inconvenienced. When they're inconvenienced, typically that gets back to the politicians, and that's one of the ways that we look towards changing things, relining things, fixing mains, doing different things, is through the complaint system. We just keep it on a regular record, and it gives us an opportunity to go back. No one wants to not flush your toilet. No one wants to not take a shower. When you have aging infrastructure and you have breakdowns or water main breaks or sewer main breaks, that changes someone's lifestyle. And unfortunately, right now, people need immediate attention on things. So that's how I push towards the boards and try to get things done. Plus, I do a lot, and I do a lot in-house. We do a lot of our own work in-house, as Lou does. He has a talented crew. I have a very talented crew. We staff masons, electricians. When we started the sewer relining, we did it all in-house. We've literally saved, if we do the entire city, we're going to save the city $90+ million of sewer relining or sewer replacement. We had a quote from an engineering firm a couple years ago. They figured it would take us between $100 and $110 million to either reline or replace our sewer system. I did a takeoff to it. I think we can do the entire system at today's dollars, maybe a little more percentages on it in the next couple of years, for probably $10 million using in-house labor. Unfortunately, using in-house labor, you take your manpower or women power and you move them to different tasks. So some of the other things get left behind. And that's one of the hardest things, is to try to get everything done that needs to be done to operate a city or a town, because there's a lot of things that we do throughout the day that most don't see, most don't know. I've been very proactive in taking my mayor or council for rides to show them, to see what we do, see the back door of what we do, see in the ground of what we do. And that's helped tremendously, because once you get one or two of them in your corner, they try to, at least they talk to the rest. So that's a good way to do it also. Lou?
Yeah, like Jack says, echo, almost everything that he said. It's very similar. It's the same story all over. They don't need you till they need you. Everybody's okay until, they open the tap and nothing comes out, or they go to flush and it doesn't go down. The other thing that we do here in Walk Hill, we have a very, I don't know if I want to use the word aggressive, but we have a very proactive planning board. We have, very active sessions with the planning board. And, we try to keep our politicians engaged by showing them the benefits of providing good, reliable infrastructure, because ultimately that's what's going to build your tax base. That's what's going to build your community. That's going to keep the people coming here. That's going to want the people to relocate here, businesses specifically. The world is a changing place. We're going from big box stores, and we're going to, fulfillment warehouses. Everybody hears about a warehouse. They think it's Amazon. It's, 1 million square feet. No, what it is, it's, 60, 70, 80,000 square feet of 10 warehouses each that are, shipping one item for either an Amazon or somebody similar to that. So we see that here a lot. And that's how you keep engaged. And of course, Jack and I have both lived it for 35 years. I like to say, with no disrespect, because I come from a political family, but we've seen them come and we've seen them go. And you might get somebody in that has a pet project, which is okay. Might get some board members in, supervisors and mayors, that are very aggressive and they like to get things done. And you may get some other folks that are not as aggressive, and they're kind of hoping for the status quo. One of the challenges that Jack mentioned is that we live in a society of instant gratification, literally. between texting and emails and things like that. I'll email Jack at 11:30 and I don't get back to him. He doesn't get back to me by noon. He doesn't like me anymore. But we do. We live in a society, and what that drives is, like Jack said, the complaint-driven side. You'll get a phone call or you get an email or something about an issue in the town, and you do your best to address it as soon as possible. But in someone's eyes, you didn't do it quick enough. But to get them invested, I think the big thing is you have to show them the return on the investment. Similar to what Jack said, we do a tremendous amount of work in-house at the town. We farm very little stuff out. We are one of the few, extremely few municipalities left that try to get our employees, specifically in water and sewer, dual certified, both water and sewer certifications. That is a thing of the past. You'll find towns that have dedicated sewer crews, dedicated water crews. In our world with aging infrastructure, you try to do as much as you can in-house, that's for sure. But to echo Jack's comments, the same thing. When you've got your employees working on a specific project, well, it takes them away from some of the other stuff. The other thing, of course, for the leaders that are listening today, is prevailing rate and what prevailing rate does to our projects. We can afford to do a project in-house for a third of the price, as opposed to contracting it out. And the numbers that Jack put out there is reflective of that. The other thing we have to be cognizant of is we have to be able to pay our employees a living wage. If we want our people to be part of our community and live in our community and serve our community, well, then you got to pay them enough to live in your community. And that's a challenge. That's a challenge. I wore a union hat for 23 years, and I negotiated for CSEA. And you have to get the politicians to understand, what a living wage is in this area, and how you can raise that money, so that your employees are invested and your employees become part of the community. And that's a challenge on both sides. It usually is. However, all that being said, it all translates back to being able to provide a good service for a good price, getting people to relocate here, and getting industry to relocate here. So what you want is you want the best residents and the best industry that doesn't put a demand on your infrastructure, pays a decent tax rate or a decent water rate to fund your projects and fund your budgets for the year. And it's ever moving, and sometimes it's a challenge, sometimes it's a struggle, but historically, I think people that come and go, folks that run for office, hopefully they have faith in their people. I've been pretty blessed over 35 years to work with a lot of good boards and supervisors, and I'm sure Jack can say the same.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up to Dick, and Lou just alluded to it about doing these projects. One thing I've learned a long time ago, any project is doable with your own manpower. One thing we've learned to do is we give them certain tasks during the day. We don't tell them 3 days from now what they're going to do. Today, you're going to put a valve in. Tomorrow, you're going to put another gate valve in. And that's how you get these projects. We rebuilt some big pump stations, stormwater pump stations, and we did it because we piecemealed it with our guys and gave them certain tasks. And after the next week, we prepped for them for the next week after that to do these tasks. And prevailing wage, and I'm not downing prevailing wage, but like Lou alluded to, you will triple. I just alluded to it when I talked about how much it costs for a contractor to do our sewer main replacement and reline it. It's millions of dollars compared to what you can do in the house. But again, if you don't have the correct manpower and you don't want to pay the wage, it is very difficult to do.
Maybe I can get you guys to share some real life stories here about cost savings and what repairs to sewer lines and water lines can do for your community. One that comes to mind for me, as I previously represented the town of New Windsor as the engineer for the town, we repaired. The supervisor was very interested in removing infiltration inflow because our sewer plant was at or near capacity. And every gallon per day of stormwater that gets into your sanitary sewer system, it takes up valuable capacity in your sewage treatment plant. One repair project that we had in the town of New Windsor saved us 300,000 gallons per day of flow by removing a wetland that was discharging into manholes on a continuous basis. So there is a huge cost savings. If you had to replace that sewer capacity today, it would cost you $20 per gallon per day. So you're talking millions of dollars to replace that capacity. And I know Lou has some stories about water conservation and things and leaks that have been found, and I'm sure, Jack, you have the same that you might be able to share with these people.
So I'll get back to the same thing Dick was just talking about with I&I. We're lucky enough in the city of Port Jervis, we run our collection system for sanitary sewer, but we're lucky enough that New York City DEP treats our sewage. It was something that happened back in the 50s, and it's for eternity in case a couple things happen. But we're under the microscope of New York City. New York City is a very big brother to us. So I&I is a big deal to us. So we do deal with this in two ways. We did our own leak detection. I bought equipment to do our own leak detection and water main leaks. Every year, my water guys go out and we do put sondes on valves, and we listen for leaks. And when we find leaks, we document them. We go back within a week and we fix them. A lot of water main leaks infiltrate into the sewer system because you end up having deficiencies in your sewer mains with cracks, with roots, with different things. And that's where, when we started this grant for the sewer relining, the state didn't know anything about a DPW doing it. So it took us a long time to get through this. But between the two of these things, we've saved tens of thousands of gallons per day going into the system during rain events or during water main breaks, the same type of thing, because a lot of water main breaks don't surface. They stay subsurface and they will get into the catch basins or into the sewer mains. So that's that's two of the things that we do to try to alleviate things like that.
Yeah, I think that one of the big things we look at here in Walcott, like I said, it's based on the water side of things, seeing that we're driven, by groundwater wells. All our wells are shallow, gravel-packed wells, some influenced by the river, like I spoke about. So water conservation, leak detection, that's paramount. Making sure that your meters are calibrated, that's paramount. Make sure that the water that you're putting out is the water that's going through through the meters, which is the cash register, to make sure that everything's good to go. And then when you find an issue that all of a sudden you're finding something that's not correct, you have to go and you have to look for it, and you have to be aggressive, because like what Dick alluded to and what Jack alluded to, if you can find a couple 100,000 gallons a day in capacity, just imagine to the next company or the next commercial property or the next apartment complex, when you have capacity to sell, that's when you're in a good position. And so it kind of all ultimately everything circles back, all these questions circle back to the same thing. Like Dick said, how do you get buy-in? You get buy-in by providing capacity. How do you get capacity? You get capacity by, making sure that your infrastructure is sound. So it's all interrelated. It's all interconnected, to the point where, you have to be progressive today. You can't sit back and, hopefully nothing will happen and you don't prepare for the future. And, we've had some very large main breaks that we've repaired. Majority of them are on our own. We just had a very large one. We have a sleeve 10-inch water main underneath Route 84. If you're familiar with the area at all, from the Tetz concrete plant over to the old Wakefern facility, which is now Old Dominion and President Container. And we estimate that leak, when we found that was somewhere in the neighborhood of 400,000 to 600,000 gallons per day. And we ended up pulling a new line through. Again, that was a much larger job that we could handle internally, just based on the logistics and the equipment. But ultimately, we took our daily average water production down by almost 500,000 gallons by finding that leak. And those are the things you have to be out there. You can't get complacent. Unfortunately, we all do a little bit. And I'm a firm believer in a fresh set of eyes. We go in and check something out. I try. Jack will tell you, when you get to a position such as we're in, the problem is you end up driving your office chair and your computer more than you do your vehicle. But you got to get out. You got to get out. You got to talk to your people. You got to talk to your employees. You got to see what's going on out there. The higher level you get, the more removed you get, which sometimes is unfortunate. But you got to get out of the chair once in a while, and you got to go check things out and make sure you're staying on it. So that's definitely a recommendation to anybody that's listening. Just listen to your employees, listen to what's going on, and get involved, get engaged.
Well, one of the other things you might be able to give the listeners a little bit of information about has to do with water meters, residential water meters in the communities we're talking about in Port Jervis, not so much in Walk Hill, but in New Windsor. The residential water meters have been in service for over 50 years and maybe longer. We did a bench scale study in New Windsor, and it showed that a substantial percentage of those water meters that have been in service that long are not reading water at all. And what does that mean? That means dollars. That means that the water that the household is using is not getting recorded and therefore is not getting billed. So the new advances in water metering is a great opportunity for communities to not only save water, but also increase revenues. And maybe both of you guys could give the listeners an idea of what those new water meters and the monitoring systems can do for their communities.
Well, I'll start because I'm not as far as Lou is in the meter system, but we had the same Orion system that Lou had. We had it installed when we did that $10 million grant. We installed all of our meters. One of the big issues I have right now is we are billing commercially, but I'm having a very difficult time in my town city council to bill residentially. We have meters installed in every residential house. Probably about 2 years ago, Lou came over and spoke to a few of my city council members about how they bill and how they generate money and how they generate funds. And unfortunately, to this date, we're still not at that. I just got an email this morning because we're going to switch to the cellular system that Lou alluded to a little while ago to generate. We get a lot of calls about high water bills and different things that happen. Probably 98% of the time when you get a high water bill, it's because of your use or because you have a leak. Most meters do not run faster. They run slower the older they get. So we'll send our water guys in there. We'll watch. We'll tell them what to look for. And probably 85% of the time, it's a leaky toilet. And when you have a leaky toilet, you can go through tens of thousands of gallons of water a day. And yes, you're generating income for the town or the city, but I think ultimately we're all in the same game that we're trying to conserve water because conservation of water helps us not produce as much, which costs less, and not treat as much, which again costs less. So ultimately it ends up saving taxpayer dollars. But I'm not as far ahead as Lou is in the cellular. I just actually got an email today about it. And I'm going to hope the city council moves forward with it in their next funding round.
Yeah, once again, very similar to echo what Jack says. It's imperative that your meters are doing what they're supposed to be doing because they are the cash registers. Without that funding, you're not going to be able to maintain what you have. Like I said, in Walk Hill now, we're approaching 6,100 water and sewer accounts. We're in the midst of switching over to a cellular type network. We're going with Badger, the Beacon system. However, there are other, there's other, industry or companies out there to do it. What we found was through this process, there's 6,100 accounts. We have a water billing clerk. We have a water sewer superintendent. We have myself. We have the operators. There's places that slip through the cracks. We found numerous places in town that may have had a water meter installed at one time, but for whatever reason, either through some oversight or through a software glitch, all of a sudden they don't have an account built into the system, and they're not getting billed for the water that they're using. And when that happens, people go crazy and they get upset. And if I stop getting a light bill from Orange Rockland, it wasn't because Orange Rockland likes me and I get free electric. Okay, so if you're not getting a water bill, there's culpability on both sides. And again, all that being said, what I like to, I like to put it out there. The average residential, the average person, the average taxpayer, in the town of Walcott is probably paying somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe $175 to $225 a quarter for water. Okay, so at the end of the day, they get a bill, and if it's a little higher, it's a little low, they're going to go crazy. And I always allude to, I said, when was the last time you called Spectrum on a daily basis because you were upset with your $200 a month cable bill? Or when was the last time you called Verizon or T-Mobile or one of these places because you were upset with your $200 a month cell phone bill? Okay, I think you can go without TV and without a cell phone a lot longer than you can go without water and sewer. So I think people just, no disrespect, I think people just have to get their priorities straight to the point that it costs money to produce water. It costs money to treat wastewater. And we have to do a good job, basically telling our people what it costs, why it costs what it does, and, what they're receiving for the money that they're paying. And I think when it comes down to it, what you're going to find is it's probably the best bargain out there that you can get, potable drinking water, and you can get your wastewater taken away, and you don't have to deal with it for a relatively, conservative amount of money in most municipalities. And I think we lose sight of that because it's guaranteed that there's water coming out of the tap, and it's guaranteed that your toilet's going to flush until it doesn't. But to get back to Dick's original question with the meters, we've had some very eye-opening experiences over the past 12 to 18 months as we started into the cellular network, going out and checking the meters, counting the meters, both residential and commercial, just to make sure that there's accounts in place. We've been billing since day one, and that's what funds us. But again, we also have the benefit assessment fees, which allows us to keep our water bills, kind of low, and like I said, in line with where they should be. So,
We got any questions out there? One thing we really wasn't a topic for discussion today, and it was on the agenda for tomorrow, but apparently it's not going to be discussed, and that's the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. And I do have a fact sheet here. I can give you some highlights of that as it relates to water and sewer infrastructure anyway. The Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund will deliver $350 billion to state, local, territorial, and tribal governments to respond to the COVID emergency. They're calling it the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. The fund distribution of the $350 million will allocate approximately $85 billion to counties and local municipalities. That's a big number. Local governments should expect to receive funds in two phases. 50% will be provided in the beginning of May of 2021, and the balance delivered over a 12-month period. There are several categories where the funds can be used, including the support of public health expenditures to address negative economic impacts by the public health agencies, replace lost public sector revenue, provide premium pay for essential workers, and lastly, invest in water and sewer and broadband infrastructure, making necessary investments to improve access to clean drinking water and support vital wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. So this is a large pot of money that can be invested in water and wastewater infrastructure. The drinking water infrastructure projects will include building and upgrading facilities for transmission, distribution, storage systems, and the replacement of lead service lines. And I know Port Jervis is invested in that right now. Recipients can also use wastewater infrastructure projects for construction of publicly owned treatment infrastructure, managing stormwater, and facilitate water reuse and secure publicly owned treatment works. So this is something that all the communities out there should be looking at as a source of ways to solve their aging infrastructure problems and possibly construct new water and wastewater treatment facilities in the coming near future.
Dick, in that, and I know I read a little bit about that, but it's something that a lot of the mayor, supervisor, whoever's on, is this going to get managed through the New York State DOT? Is that who's going to manage the funding?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know I was at a meeting of the Association of Towns and Cities a month ago down in Chester. Mike Sweeten from Warwick. Mike is a very aggressive guy and very proactive. And Mike had alluded to some of this, and I'm sure, at upcoming meetings of, Association of Towns, things like that, there will be more information coming out. That's for sure. I also sit as I'm chairman of Hudson Valley Waterworks. That's a couple hundred water and sewer operators. We get together quarterly, do some training. And I'm also the president of the County Highway Superintendents Association. And my goal in both of those organizations is to get as much information as we can and get it out to the municipalities. So if there's anyone on the panel, that's listening, that needs more information, they can certainly reach out to myself or Jack or Dick, and we can try to get you as much information as we can. I think this is something that it's 300 and some billion, which sounds like a lot of money until you start spreading it around the whole country. So I think it's going to be imperative to strike first. I think it's going to be imperative to get your request in as soon as possible. And I would stay on our local and regional leaders to get us the information that that we need, specifically at the state and federal level. They should be providing us with information almost on a daily basis on this, because their goal should be to bring it back home to us. So anyone that's out there listening, or anyone that's out there who has connections, through that portal, should definitely get us the information, back. I've been a big believer of, being involved in politics at our level, Jack and myself as commissioners. You have to be involved in politics, but you want to remain apolitical, because at the end of the day, we're not working for any individual party. We're working for the people, and we need to have relationships, whether the person's a Democrat or Republican, an independent, it doesn't matter. We want to be involved in politics, but remain apolitical. And the way you're going to get this money to come back to you is to lean on your local and state and federal representatives to help you out.
And one thing I wanted to bring up, and we didn't talk about it earlier because we were looking at substructure all the time, but in the city of Port Jervis, we just got done doing a large scale project, which is behind me in the picture. We did a road widening bridge replacement project with 2 culverts. And I'm hopeful, and I'm hopeful with this funding coming down that they make the process a little bit easier. And I'm not here to beat up the DOT or anybody like that, but that project that sits behind me on the wall started out as a $6 million project almost 20 years ago, and ended this past spring in 2020 at just about $22 million at the end of the day. So that project took almost 20 years to finally get to construction, to get through things. So I'm hopeful this money, when the CARES Act comes down, they can streamline the process, trust your local highway departments and public works departments to do the jobs correctly, hire consultants that are in this business, that we can do this job correctly. And try to keep as much oversight as at the state level as minimal as possible. And I'm not here to beat up the state, but if we're going to get money, we need to get it into the ground. We need to get the shovels in there, and we need to start doing projects before our entire infrastructure fails in this country.
I know our focus today was, talking about aging infrastructure as it relates to water and sewer, but highways and bridges are also a critical asset to the communities, the state, and the region. There'll be a program tonight sponsored by the New York State Department of Transportation on the improvements proposed to Route 17 between Harriman and Monticello. It should be an interesting program. There are some exciting aspects of it, particularly for the town of Walcott, as we've had a brief preview of what they propose to do. The corridor between exit 121 and 122 is a high priority in light of the number of accidents that occur out there. So we're hoping our town board and supervisor and planning boards look at that. We're also focusing on the aging infrastructure of Route 211 and coming up with some innovative ways to fund improvements to that corridor with the help of developers within the town of Walcott. So if anybody wants to talk about that or speak to it, you can talk to Lou and Gracia and myself, or the planning board chairman, and we'd be glad to talk to you about how we're working with the developers to help pay for improvements to traffic improvements and roadway traffic signalization, et cetera.